stay in the house, Yanbei City just pull Mo Shanghua. Will today's situation one by one with Mo Shanghua listen? However, the appearance of fear in the temple had disappeared. Instead, he had a light face and no fear. It seemed that everything was in his hands. I thought Yanmoli would endure for some time. I didn't expect that he would be unable to sit so soon. There was a deep irony in the deep pupil of Yanbei City. Last night, my father summoned Yan Xinchuan alone. He was afraid that if he was slower, the throne would fall into the hands of others. Unfortunately, what he has done will become a big dream in the end. The flowers on the street utter words coldly, and there is no emotion in the eyes of Qingling. Yan Xinchuan's carriage was on the street, and he could hear the noise outside the sedan chair clearly. In the past, the streets were also full of the same life, but they were all peddlers and people living and working in peace and contentment. And amp. Today there is no hawker in the street who dares to set up a stall anymore. Instead, a group of imperial guards are patrolling the street in a uniform way, and they are searching the streets wantonly. It's said that the mobs have been in the street, and even Yan Xinchuan's carriage has been strictly guarded to prevent the mobs from coming. It's just that he always finds it strange. Yan Xinchuan frowned slightly and thought for a long time, then suddenly raised his voice and said, "Go to Yuangfu. Your Highness, King Yu's mansion is under the strict supervision of your Majesty now. No one can go out, no one can go." Outside the carriage, the voice of the boy who was close to him was very worried. "If it doesn't matter, I'll go to King Yu's house." Yan Xinchuan, who has always been gentle, is particularly stubborn at this time. His warm voice is mixed with irresistible power. "Yes." Outside the door, the boy responded helplessly, and ordered the coachman to change the way to the house of King Yu. Today, Yanmoli is just a mob of less than 100 people. It is clear that he only needs to send 100 people to live in, but he has mobilized 300 imperial guards to encircle the whole government. Among the people, many of them are weak at the sight of the battle, and more than 100 people are just coming to see the excitement and are surrounded by them. Some people in the crowd cried out, "Brothers, the government is forcing the people to revolt. They are going to kill us all. We can't wait to die, fight with them. Both vertical and horizontal are dead. It's clear that good people are not allowed to live in this world. They have to fight." A large number of people were incited, and now they were all red in front of their eyes, copying all kinds of tools. At this time outside the city, in the pro-guard camp of Yanbei City, some people also stood up to incite. "You guys, did you just see the Imperial Guards? According to the news just received in the city is in chaos. Our Lord has been imprisoned by the Dog Emperor. The Lord treats us well. How can we wait to die? We must go into the city to rescue the Lord. Kill." When Yan Xinchuan arrived at Yan Beiqing's residence, he was stopped by the guards in charge of guarding. "Your Majesty has an order. No one is allowed to go in and out of King Yu's residence. Please don't embarrass him." Yan Xinchuan's warm eyebrows were dyed a little fierce, and all the gentleness in his voice disappeared. "Since you know the identity of this hall, don't you know that my father always valued me? This time I came here, I was also instructed by my father. Oracles are nothing but empty words. How can we believe them without the people around Baorong? Your Highness, don't worry about it." The leading bodyguard was embarrassed. Yan Xinchuan did not panic at all. He said lightly, "This hall is the son of my father. Do you need someone else to prove to you that my father's dictation is okay?" The man in charge of the guard choked, hesitated and gave in. So Yan Xinchuan went in. The guard didn't dare to question Emperor Baorong in person. Yan Xinchuan said that he had no evidence in any case. The news that Yan Xinchuan had entered the palace soon spread to the north side of the city, and his servants introduced them into the hall. Mo Shanghua Run looks at each other, and stands up to greet each other at the same time. Yan Beiqing was in such a bad situation at the moment, but he still said with a smile, "I'm really moved that the 13th Emperor's younger brother can come to see me at this time." The flower on the street is also the same person with black belly. A smile flashed in his eyes when he heard the words, but he didn't open it. Yan Xinchuan has always been quite confused and nervous. Seeing Yan Beiqing's look, all his worries disappear immediately, And then there are strong doubts. Brother Wu can still laugh now, which must have been expected. It's just that Sun Xian is stupid. He really doesn't know what he's doing. Yan Beiqing's mind has always been very deep. Now see Yan Sinchuan so asked, still Thing with a smile. 13 Emperor younger brother sit down first. Qingya goes to serve tea. Mo Shanghua, with the same calm face, gave an order to Qingya and sat down. In fact, today is when you don't come. Your brother and I will try to invite you to come. What does that mean? Yan Sinchuan's eyebrows and eyes were warm and moist. He still stood in the same place. The flowers on the street of Yanbei City looked at each other, and only laughed without saying anything. The couple are playing a riddle, and Yan Sinchuan is full of confusion. This matter is very important. He can't figure it out for a moment, so he can't sit down safely. Mo Shanghua personally put the hot tea Qingya just brought up on the small table for Yan Sinchuan. Brother Shizenhuang, you'd better have a cup of tea first. Within 3 days there will be results. Yan Sinchuan's heart was beating violently, and an idea came out of his heart. Is it? Tell your majesty, the king you outside the city has rebelled. Now we are fighting with the guards. The people in the city also killed Red Eye, and now they have got rid of the rebellion of the guards. What Baorong Emperor Hao also can't imagine, in his lifetime will give birth to such a big mess suddenly up. The bodyguard who came to reply continued to speak tremblingly. Your Highness the King Ling sent someone to send a message. Please make your decision. Emperor Baorong was so angry that his voice was raised several times. His face was so black that he could almost drip water. What else can we decide? Immediately transfer all the forbidden troops. It's necessary to stop. If the soldiers are not enough, they will send the imperial guards with them. Just finish saying these words. He then violent cough. Lu Wing patted Baorong Emperor's back in front of the mountain. Your Majesty, please calm down. Dr. Lu has said for a long time. You can't be angry at will. The imperial guards are brave and good at fighting. They will settle this matter soon. Just relax. Baorongdi's cough was not relieved, but became more and more serious. After a long time, it gradually calmed down. When I spread out my palm, I saw a dazzling scarlet. Lu Weng was shocked and cried out, Your Majesty Yu. Before his voice fell, Emperor Baorong's body shook and suddenly fell down. Lu Weng had a sense of propriety. When Emperor Baorong fainted again, he sent for the imperial doctor first, and then quickly went to Cunning Palace and invited Queen Lin to come. Now the Empress Dowager is still seriously ill. The news of Baorong Emperor's illness should not be spread out at will. It is the best way to find Empress Lin to preside over the overall situation. However, he miscalculated a lot of things. Empress Lin is Yen Moli's foster mother. As a mother, she should plan for her son at this time. What's the matter, Dr. Lu? Didn't you say before that your Majesty's health is all right? What's the matter this time? Empress Lin came fiercely and aimed at Lu Zheng for the first time. Lu Zheng bowed his head and said in a warm voice, I'd like to inform the Queen that your Majesty is now in a state of impatience. In other words, his previous diagnosis is all right. Unexpectedly, Empress Lin, who has always been virtuous and gentle, changed her face at this time and said coldly, It's clear that your medical skill is not good, which makes your Majesty's body bury such hidden dangers. Now she dares to argue in front of our palace. You don't have to come here for diagnosis and treatment. Our palace has invited too many hospitals to judge. She said this very sharply, no longer like the usual soft voice. As soon as the voice fell, 2 imperial guards came forward and took down Lu Zheng, and the rest of the imperial doctors who were in the palace were also taken down. Take it down. The expressionless enunciation behind Lin Huang. Lu Zheng had expected such a move for a long time, so he didn't panic or struggle, so he let the imperial guards take him down. Lu Weng was terrified and asked carefully, Lady, this is... Empress Lin glanced at Lu Weng from the corner of her eye, then turned around and stood in front of the collapse of Emperor Baorong. Her voice was solemn and cold. The news that your Majesty fainted again must not be spread out. Therefore, we have to do this. When your Majesty gets better, we will invite you personally. Crime. As the words fell, A pair of imperial guards of 100 people suddenly burst out of the hall. But for a moment, they surrounded the whole hall. The uniform footstep outside the hall made Lu Wang's heart tremble, and he knelt down. "I obey the order." Empress Lin nodded a little, and her voice slowed down a little. "I'll step back first, and the imperial doctor brought by our palace will diagnose for your majesty." Lu Wang raised his eyes and looked at Baorong Emperor, who was lying on the dragon bed. He closed his eyes. After a while he opened his eyes and left the palace with a bent body. The hall was soon cleaned up, and Queen Lin looked at the imperial hospital, which ordered Dr. Lu. Lu Yui came over with his medicine box on his back, and put his hand between Baorong Emperor's veins to feel his pulse. "Nyang Nyang, your majesty's body." But after a while, Lu Yuyi's face changed greatly, his lips trembled and knelt down, and he could not spit out the last few words anyway. Empress Lin already had the answer in her heart, but she still grasped her sleeve subconsciously. "Just say, what is it?" Dr. Lu buried his head tightly on the ground and said in horror, your majesty's body is losing a lot of internal power. Fainting a few days ago is a sign. Today he vomited blood again. I'm afraid he can't go back to heaven." Empress Lin felt that her whole body's breath was frozen at this moment. Her hand holding her sleeve trembled slightly, and then she grasped it harder and harder. Her fingertips turned white because of excessive force. Is this man really going to die? Yes, they have been married for more than 20 years. Now even she is wrinkled. They are all old. It's not surprising that Beirongdi has come to this step. Since ancient times, the Emperor Xiaoshou is shouting more long live, still cannot change this fact. Empress Lin suddenly felt sad. She waved to Imperial Dr. Lu and sat on the edge of the dragon couch in a trance. Baorong Emperor's political achievements in this life are still very clear. When he was young, he was also a good emperor who worked hard. In recent months, he became a little irritable, but he had no influence on the country. Empress Lin had some feelings for him in her heart. Thinking of this, Empress Lin could not help holding Baorong Emperor's hand, with a deep sadness in her eyes. Your Majesty, I can't imagine that you really want to go before me. I married you for more than 20 years when I was young. For so many years, you have been very kind to me. But these days, why do you want to leave me behind and scold me in public? Do you know why you treat me like that? Is it the son of your favorite lady who wants to make him the crown prince? Emperor Lin took Emperor Baorong's hand and murmured to himself. Looking at Emperor Baorong, he looked sad and resentful. He was extremely contradictory, but he was also extremely attached to him. At this moment, Baorong Emperor, no longer fierce above the court hall, lies quietly on the dragon couch, with high intelligence, eyes closed tightly, the same wrinkles on his face, eyes flabby and drooping, lips pale and colorless. But Empress Lin seemed to see Baorong Emperor when she was young through such a pale and old face. She immediately put on a smile. She didn't know whether it was self-mockery or jealousy at the bottom of her eyes. Your Majesty, the son of Shufei does look like you when you were young, but he is not as brave and fierce as you. Why do you take a fancy to him? Why don't you tell me where your imperial edict is hidden? It's true that in the past 2 months, although she was under foot restraint, her father was a marquis in the east, and her brother was a general guarding the frontier. Naturally, some important news came to her word for word. Although Emperor Baorong never mentioned it in the imperial court, he often summoned important officials in private to discuss the issue of establishing a crown prince. Unfortunately, there was no final conclusion. However, according to Donglin Hao's conjecture, Emperor Baorong fainted a few days ago. I'm afraid he was frightened and must have written the imperial edict. With this in mind, Empress Lin suddenly let go of Emperor Baorong's hand, and her smile gradually became a bit proud and crazy. But it's a pity that no matter who you pay the most attention to in your heart, it must be the heir who will ascend the throne in the future. And this palace is naturally the Supreme Empress Dowager, the only Empress Dowager in the palace. Yen Moli lost her biological mother when she was a child. Since then, no one has ever shared the Empress Dowager's respect with her. In the future, in this palace, she is really one person below and 10,000 above. The more she thought about the situation in the future, The sadness in Empress Lin's heart was also dissipated. Instead, she was filled with resentment. You've been treating me like this recently. Don't you just want to clear the obstacles for your son Yin Xinchuan? But you forget that this palace is the daughter of the Marquis in the east. There are father and elder brother holding real power behind him. Half of the imperial guards are in the hands of this palace. My elder brother has already come back. Soon, this palace will be the world of Lear and me. As for your most beautiful concubine, that bitch and her son, I will not let go. By the way, there is the woman who was used and abandoned by you, the biological mother of Yan Beicheng. Our palace will send him down to accompany you. Empress Lin's smile faded, and she looked down at Baorong Emperor. Her red lips spoke softly. No matter how confused Yan Xinchuan was, Mo's Hang Flower and Yan Beicheng decided not to talk about it. They just stayed him until it was getting late, and even let Yan Xinchuan eat lunch and dinner with them. No matter how confused Yan Xinchuan was, Mo's Hang Flower and Yan Beicheng would not let him go. During this period, even if there were guards outside the gate, the news from the outside still came to Yanbei City one by one. Among them, the whole imperial city was in chaos. This kind of moment, Mo Ling no longer need to hide in the dark, then appear in front of the public. Yan Xinchuan couldn't sit still for several times. He was persuaded by the flowers on the street of Yanbei City. He just advised him to be calm. In the evening, Yan Xinchuan didn't want to have a meal, but the flowers on the street of Yanbei City still ate very well. My lord, it's the palace. After dinner, Mo Ling appeared again and said in a deep voice, Your Majesty vomited blood and fainted. The Empress temporarily imprisoned Lu Zheng and other imperial doctors for the reason that they were not proficient in medical skills. Another appointed imperial doctor went to the palace and ordered the imperial guards to surround the whole palace. Now the palace is in a state of panic, and the imperial palace is not allowed to go in and out at will. As soon as the words were heard, another dark guard rushed in. Lord, the second prince ordered people to surround some important officials' residences. The whole place was controlled by searching the mob. Yan Xinchuan suddenly got up, eyes full of shock. What you said is true? Father, did he really vomit blood and faint? Mo Ling nodded slightly and said, Yes, now the palace has been occupied, and it's very difficult for us to get in and out of the palace. At present, the only information we can get is these. Yan Xinchuan's sword eyebrows were tightly wrinkled together. He was completely flustered, and then he walked out toward you. No, I can't see my father being controlled. I have to go. Now there are Yan Moli and General Chen's imperial guards in the city, and the Queen's imperial guards in the palace. Do you think you can play any role when you go there? Just as the steps moved, the cold and heartless voice of flowers on the street came in. Yan Xinchuan only felt that his full of excitement and resentment were all poured down by a bucket of cold water at the moment, cool thoroughly. He stepped back a few steps, with a strong self-mockery on his face. Yes, what's the use of me besides being anxious? After a pause, he turned his head, and his warm eyebrows suddenly fell on Yan Beicheng, who was sitting on the seat safely. Brother Huang, you have an idea in your heart? Yan Beicheng did not answer directly, but shook his head gently and said, There is only one thing I can't understand. Normally, my father's body won't fall down so soon. The corner of the flower's lips on the street was slightly raised, and there was a sneer on the beautiful face. Why do you think Yan Moli started so quickly? I'm afraid he is the only one who knows the whole story best. You mean? Thinking of the possibility in his heart, Yan Xinchuan's heart was completely filled with anger. How dare he? He's killing his father. What's the point of such behavior with animals? Mo Shangflower lightly swept him one eye. The face has no facial expression of opening. This is in your royal family, isn't it common? Yan Beicheng leaned back and said no. Yan Xinchuan also completely quiet down. Some took off force of sat down. Purse lips not language. Indeed, for the royal family, these things are just ordinary things, and Yan Xinchuan can't find any words to refute them. This is also something that he has a little bit of resistance in his mind. His bones are fratricidal and he kills his father and his mother. He has always been reluctant to fight against each other. He is also afraid that he will come to this stage and become such a ruthless person. On one side of the flower's lips on the street, he raised a slight sneer. Even the throne of Baorong Emperor was obtained after such cruel fraternity and flesh and blood struggle? Yen Xinchuan did not retort, slightly drooping his eyes, lips overflow a touch of self-mockery. I am immersed in the past so pure days, but now I understand. Huang Sa, you just say, what shall we do next? You don't have to do anything, just stay in King Yu's house. Mo Shanghua is still that sentence, his voice is gentle, without too much emotional ups and downs. This time, Yen Xinchuan, never so anxious, gently nodded. I know, Huang Sa, although rest assured, I will not ask more. Yen Beiqing suddenly stood up and walked out. His face had been safe all day, and now he was dignified. King Yu's mansion was surrounded by the imperial guards, so it was peaceful in the mansion at this time, but the noise outside the mansion began to ring gradually. The roar of the soldiers, the struggle of the people, and the sound of weapons colliding have been heard gradually. Mo Shanghua also stood up and stood side by side with Yen Beiqing. Her voice slowed down and said, here we are. Yen North City stretched out his hand to hold Mo Shanghua's hand, eyebrows and eyes mild. Mo, I can give you a stable soon. Mo Shanghua shakes her head and her eyes are especially firm. Only when you stay safely in the house can you confuse Yen Moli. I have to go to this matter. Yen Beiqing's big palm suddenly tightened, and the worries in his eyes almost turned into substance. I don't want you to take risks. Mo Ling can also go there. North City. Mo Shanghua slowed down his voice and called his name so gently for the first time. Only if I go in person, you can rest assured that if it doesn't help, I will still be covered with poison. I have already made a perfect plan. Yen Beiqing's eyes closed slightly and shook her hand slightly. After a while, he opened his eyes again and held her tightly in his arms. You must come back safely. Otherwise, I will go with you. Mo Shanghua hugged him and held his waist tightly. He solemnly promised, I'll come back. Even for you and my children, I will come back safely. In the second half of the sentence, she only recited it in her heart, then released Yen Beiqing. Maureen, take more hands with you and protect yourself. Yenbei City is still not at ease, directly called Moling. No, I'm enough alone. I'd better leave Mo Ling to you. You can only take good care of Qinya for me. Mo Shanghua directly shakes his head and refuses. Mao Guang sweeps Qinya standing in the hall. Qinya's eyes suddenly turned red, and anxiously came forward and grasped the sleeves of the flowers on the street. Princess, are you going to do something very dangerous? Mo Shanghua didn't answer directly. She raised her hand to touch Qinya's hairy hair and said with a smile, Don't worry, I'll be okay, and I'm not as dangerous as you think. With that, she took out several packages of good poison powder wrapped in oil paper, and put them into Qinya's hands. You can take this and protect yourself at the key time. Qinya's eyes were moist, and she took the poison powder with tears in her eyes. The princess can rest assured that the maidservant will take care of herself. She had nothing left. She was also a drag on the princess when she went there. She was obedient, so as not to distract her. Just don't worry. I'll be back soon. The flower on the street comforted him with a warm voice, and then took out a few packets of poison powder, and put it on Yen Beiqing. The poison in this is enough to poison people within 2 meters of your body, so you have to accept these. Yen Beiqing did not refuse. He held the wrapped poison powder tightly in his hand and sipped his lips. Mo Shanghua is very considerate. She gives Yen Beiqing Qinya and Yen Xinchuan, and Mo Ling a few packages respectively. Then she quietly retreats. She was alone, but behind her, she was not afraid. Mo Shanghua had just left the mansion, and Yen Moli led the forbidden army to encircle the whole mansion of King Yu. At this time, the imperial guards he led were no longer the first 300. He transferred 3,000 imperial guards to the palace. 1,000 of them were sent to encircle the 13th prince's mansion, and the remaining 2,000 were to encircle the whole Yuang's mansion. There are only 5,000 imperial guards stationed in the palace. Now 3,000 are here, and the remaining 2,000 are subdued by the other 3,000 imperial guards in the palace. Now, not to mention that the palace is under his control, Even the imperial city has been firmly controlled by him. The imperial guards, who were originally responsible for guarding King Yu's mansion, were all flustered when they saw the battle, and they all looked at Yen Moli. "Your Highness, what is this?" One of the guards in the imperial forest was daring to inquire. Yen Moli rode on a high horse, and his eyelids did not droop when he heard the words. "I have been ordered to eliminate the anti-thieves in the city, and now I want to search King Yu's house." The guards looked at each other and were quite puzzled. It's been a whole day since King Yu's mansion was surrounded by them. Even a fly didn't fly away. How can we get in and fight against the thieves? The bodyguards are wondering, but Yen Moli obviously has no patience to continue to consume. "How? Do you want me to invite my father to prove what I said with you? How can all these princes be such a pawn to him?" The bodyguard of the imperial forest complained in his heart, and had to smile on his face to get out of the way. Yen Moli got off his horse, and walked into the palace of King Yu. Behind him, a group of imperial guards followed him closely. His steps were neat and powerful, and the steady and neat footsteps were enough to frighten people. General Chun dismounted after Yen Moli. Before entering the mansion, he turned and looked at the imperial guards who had been removed. He said, "Take care of them for the time being." "Yes." As a result, the imperial guards, who had just passed the rounds of competition between the two princes, were taken care of again. The sudden influx of a large number of guards frightened a servant girl in the house. Before they could scream, they were all arrested one by one. Even the guards in the house were all controlled by the guards as quickly as possible. For a moment, the whole house screamed. Yen Beiqing and Yen Sinshuan leave the main hall, and Qinya and Mo Ling follow them. Yen Beiqing was indifferent, and there was no fear on his face. Yen Sinshuan was a little nervous, but he was not surprised. It is Mo Ling holding the sword tightly in one hand, paying close attention to the surroundings and taking care of Qinya from time to time. At present, only the people in Yanbei City are safe. "Brother Erhuang, what's your intention?" Yanbei City has already lost the appearance of being scared in the court hall. Looking at Yen Moli with a light complexion, Yen Moli also changed his face. His modest appearance disappeared, and his face was expressionless. Yen Sinshuan, who was in Yanbei City, said, "I have been ordered to exterminate the anti-thieves in the city. Just now, I saw that you have been infiltrated with anti-thieves. I'm afraid that the 5th Emperor's younger brother will be disturbed by the anti-thieves, so I have to do it." After a pause, he looked over Yen Beiqing and looked at Yen Sinshuan beside him. "I didn't expect that the 13th Emperor's younger brother was also here. You disobeyed his father's will and came quietly." Yen Sinshuan didn't have fear on his face, and his warm eyebrows were tight at the moment. "I came here against the orders of my father, and I'll go to his father's face to apologize in the future, so I don't need to worry about him. However, I only know that my father ordered you to lead the Forbidden Army to fight against the mob in the imperial court. When did the anti-thief come and who gave you such great military power?" Yen Mo's fierce eyes gushed out a thick evil, cold and calm voice. "The development of things has already exceeded expectations, and the emperor naturally ordered." Yen Sinshuan flashed an angry look in his eyes and clenched his fist tightly. "My father is still in a coma now. How can I make an order? What's more, there is no basis for empty talk. Do you have an imperial edict?" "There is no imperial edict right now." Yen Mo's lips pointed out a sarcastic radiance. "Old 13, you are really naive." Yen Sinshuan's light pink lips are tightly stretched into a straight line, and his eyes are looking at Yen Moli with forbearance and hatred. Yen Beiqing, one hand pressed on his shoulder, just let him full of resentment slightly ease. Yen Moli's full of sarcasm no longer disdains to cover up and sneers. "Don't you expect him to save you? Unfortunately, he has no such ability at all." After a pause, he said, "This waste has been dormant and disguised for decades. He wants to be a pig and eat a tiger. When he comes to the imperial city, he wants to make a name for himself. Unfortunately, he is just a waste firewood lord. When he comes to the imperial city, he has no foundation, and can only be trampled on by the king." At this point, his eyes showed a certain color of ambition. "Old 13, my father is in love with you, so what? You are also a waste with no foundation. No, you are even worse than him. You have been idle in the palace for more than 10 years, but now you have no ability to fight with the king. It's really ridiculous. Yan Xinchuan closed his lips tightly and didn't say a word. Yan Beiqing was smiling on his lips, and there was no anger of being insulted between his eyebrows and eyes. Is that right? I still remember that you were frustrated many times when you were in Yuzhou. Referring to the past, Yan Mo's face suddenly sank and was covered with gloom. When he was in Yuzhou, he didn't find Yan Beiqing playing the role of a pig and eating a tiger. He made a lot of obstacles secretly. Now it's really a great insult. This is not Yuzhou. Yan Moli bit his teeth and said, "Come on, King Yu is hiding the mob. He intends to rebel. Take it quickly." The 13 princes took part in the secret, and the bodyguards joined the party. After a pause, his voice sank, "Life or death?" "Don't worry, Your Highness." General Qin bowed his head to answer, and his eyes flashed a dull color. Outside the city at that time, the pro-guards from Yuzhou, who had been instigated, were killed by all the guards stationed outside the city just as they were about to enter the city. The barracks of the Imperial Guards were on the side of their barracks. There were 5,000 of them, so it was no surprise that Yuzhou pro-guards could not be annihilated. At present, the guards have withdrawn from the foot of the Imperial City and began to occupy the whole Imperial City. General Zhao Wei, the direct manager of the Forbidden Army outside the city, had long been informed by Emperor Baorong that King Yu intended to rebel. After destroying the Yuzhou guards outside the city, he closed the city gate and could not let out a fly. Thousands of miles away in the frontier, General Lin, the elder brother of Empress Lin, had already started to gather people and horses half a month ago. His name is Beautiful. Now His Majesty is bewildered by her mother and son, and wants to establish a sick seedling who can't live more than 22 years as the crown prince. Naturally, he wants to clear the emperor's side. He managed everything well, but before he could start, all the bandits of the Moon Kingdom suddenly attacked. A few rogue bandits are harmless, but they seem to be sure that they don't have time to counterattack now. They don't confront the enemy head-on. They only attack them from time to time. As early as a few days ago, their food and grass were attacked and burned clean. Without food and grass, there was no time to ask Baorong Emperor for money to buy military supplies. General Lin was at a loss. The Imperial City also sent Empress Lin's letter, asking him to return to the Imperial City quickly, but without food and grass, how would he march? Naturally, the garrison of the Imperial City is not only the Imperial Guards and the Imperial Guards, but also 20,000 Imperial Guards in the remote wilderness. But this side of the Forbidden Army is not urgent, and this talisman is only in the hands of Prince Lian. Prince Lian is the only surviving elder brother of Emperor Baorong. But when he was young, he didn't like the government. He was so spontaneous that he never went to the early dynasty. But it was such an idle prince that Baorong Emperor gave him the talisman. However, Emperor Baorong was suspicious of Prince Lian's nature. He was willing to believe that he was still like that when he was old enough. He just handed over the military food to him. The Prince Lian was very strange in nature. After he got the talisman, he still didn't care about the drill, and the court was not as good as before. Even in the palace half-eyeliner is not. The news is blocked tightly, all day except in Wang Fu's amusement, then has nothing to do with him. More importantly, Prince Lian didn't have deep feelings for Emperor Baorong. The barracks was far away from the capital. It could only be used in an emergency, and it would take at least 2 hours to dispatch troops. The prince's mansion had been controlled by Yan Moli for the first time. No fly could fly out, and no one could dispatch troops. This is also the reason why Yan Moli dares to start directly. Unfortunately, Yan Moli did everything, but he didn't expect that at this time, a young general in the military camp was standing on the exercise platform. He raised a tiger amulet in his hand and said, "Your Majesty fainted and died. The second prince was plotting to kill the king. Everyone listen to me and go to the city to help you. Yes, 20,000 officers and soldiers, the uniform should be in harmony. The momentum is enough to shake the earth." On the wall of the Imperial City, a small soldier suddenly rushed back and yelled, "General, it's not good. I don't know who ordered the imperial guards outside the city, but they are coming towards the city now. What? Zhao Wei's sword eyebrows were locked tightly, and his eyebrows were quite cold. Can you make it clear that it's the forbidden army outside the city? General Hui is indeed a forbidden army under Prince Lian. There are as many as 20,000 people. The soldier trembled. Zhao Wei waved his hand and asked the soldier to step down. His eyes were filled with doubts. Prince Lian's soldiers will only be transferred when they are most urgent. Besides, the gate of the city has been closed. When did Prince Lian's people go out to transfer troops? Naturally, because of the great events in the city, Prince Lian's talents will be transferred. As soon as Zhao Wei's voice fell, a cold woman's voice suddenly sounded behind him. Her voice was gentle and indifferent, as if she were just an outsider. Zhao Wei subconsciously touched the sword at his waist. He was as tight as a bow and turned quickly. Now that he is on the tower, there is no one behind him except the forbidden army. There is no woman's voice. Therefore, he is very alert. However, when she turned around, she saw a very delicate woman. Today, Emo Shanghua is dressed in a pure white dress. There is no embroidered pattern on her whole body. Her thin body is wrapped in white dress, and she is wearing armor at the back. Compared with the tall soldiers, she looks more and more weak. It is such a woman whose posture is more upright than that of the soldiers behind her. Her temperament is admirable without words. Who are you and how did you get up? Zhao Wei slightly relaxed a little vigilance. Eyes are still firmly staring at the beautiful face of Emo Shanghua, eyes slightly suspicious. He seems to have never seen such a beautiful woman. Emo Shanghua glanced at the soldiers who followed him. Naturally, he brought me up. The officer bowed his head slightly and said respectfully, I'll tell you back. It's Princess Yu who said that she has something important to say to you face to face. I have no choice but to bring her up. You are Princess Yu. Zhao Wei's eyes were full of disbelief. He looked at the beautiful woman in front of him and said, Your face. Mo Shanghua was not angry at Zhao Wei's reaction, but said faintly, Nature has been cured for a long time. General Zhao, I'm not here to discuss my appearance with you. Zhao Wei turned his head instead of looking at the face of the flowers on the street. The princess is not in the palace now. Why is she here? Emo Shanghua took the first 2 steps. Instead of looking at Zhao Wei, she looked at the world outside the city wall. After a long time she slowly said, It's not important. Then she turned around and looked at Zhao Wei with her eyes fixed. The important thing is that your majesty is still fainting and dying. The real ruler of the palace has become Lu Weng, and the one who gives you the imperial edict is not Baorong Emperor at all. Zhao Wei was born in a family of generals. He was full of loyalty. There was only one Emperor Baorong who was loyal to him. At the moment, when he heard the words of Emo Shanghua, he flashed a strong look of shock, and then he was more vigilant. The news of our general, Your Majesty, is still in the palace. It's the order that I transfer the forbidden army out of the city, and it's also the relatives of Your Majesty. How is it possible to have a false message? Princess Yu, King Yu's intention is not right now. Are you here to counter our general? Seeing this, a pioneer behind Zhao Wei also came forward. The general is wise. The couple of King Yu have been wrong in their hearts. First, they provoked the people in the city to revolt, and then they ordered their own guards to fight in the imperial city. Is it not a rebellion or something? General, I can't believe a word of this which. After a pause, the man's eyes flashed a little. If you don't take Princess Yu up for a while and send her to Your Majesty, it will be a great achievement. This person is obviously Yan Beiqing's most worried existence. Yan Moli is careful. He not only reaches a superficial agreement with General Chun, but also quietly places his hands around Zhao Wei, for fear that Zhao Wei will not be controlled. Zhao Wei obviously also believed what the pioneer said. He stared at Hua's beautiful face on the street for a moment, and his eyes sank slightly. Come on, take it. As soon as the words fell, 2 valiant soldiers came forward to capture Emo Shanghua. The flower on the street moves, but his eyes suddenly shrivel down, and his cold voice rises. Your Majesty, since you are well, why don't you write the imperial edict? Just send your confidants to deliver the oral instructions? Don't you think it's strange? Wait a minute. Zhao Wei raised his hand, and the two soldiers immediately stopped. Zhao Wei's eyes were fixed on the flowers in the street, and his doubts surged up again. What do you mean by that? The flower on the street raised her lips slightly, and Qingling's voice seemed to be full of the power of bewitching people. General Zhao is not a stupid man. Don't you think that if your majesty is safe and sound at the moment, and just sent a message, why do you have such great power to mobilize the forbidden forces inside and outside the city? If after this someone wants to frame you up, saying that you have transferred troops without authorization, and that you have no imperial edict, you will be killed. Zhao Wei was shocked, as if he had been hit in the head, and cleared away those doubts in his mind. Seeing that something was wrong, the pioneer quickly continued to slander. General, this woman is seducing people. If you let her seduce you, the consequences will be unimaginable. If your majesty blames you at that time, you are not the only one. All the brothers here will be buried together. General, you must take care of the lives of our brothers. This words obviously let Zhao Wei hesitate down, slightly drop eyes, don't know what to think. Mo Shanghua's eyes suddenly cooled down and turned to see the real, bewitching pioneer. She suddenly raised her hand, silver flashed between the fingers, a silver needle flying out of the fingers, with the power of lightning quickly into the pioneer's brow. The man didn't even have time to scream, so he fell down straightly, no longer alive, only a scarlet blood spot on his brow to show the cause of his death. Before Zhao Wei opened his mouth, all the soldiers around him were speechless. They all drew out their swords and looked warily at the flowers on the street. One of them saw that Zhao Wei did not return to his mind and said, "Your Highness, she killed the pioneer. Make up your mind, Zhao Wei, this just returned to God." Deeply looked at Mo Shang to spend one eye. This general how also can't think of, you unexpectedly so ruthless. In the face of the glare of so many people on the wall, the flower on the street is still calm, and his voice is cold and piercing. This man is determined to test and bewitch people, so he should be beheaded. After a pause, her red lips gently picked. More importantly, he is not a loyal man, but the maker of this incident, Ling Wang's pawn. Zhao Wei's pupils suddenly shrank, and his body slightly leaned forward. The minions of King Ling? What do you mean by that? He never retreated and looked straight at Zhao Wei. This is Ling Wang self-directing and acting, just to seek the throne. He didn't pay attention to you and the life and death of the soldiers under your hand. You are just a chip for him to get the throne. As she said this, she turned around and glanced at the soldiers. Now my husband, King Yu, and the 13 princes have been surrounded by King Ling, and your majesty is seriously ill in the palace, but the whole bedroom is surrounded by the imperial guards, and the palace is already airtight. The flowers on the street reveal the truth in front of everyone. There were soldiers who were crying for revenge for the pioneer before, but now they have stopped, and they are looking at each other face to face. The knife in their hands is a little loose. Zhao Wei was also in a trance. After a while, he digested all the news from Mo Shanghua. Then suddenly he trotted to the wall of the city and looked down. At this time in the past, although it was not as lively as the center of the city, occasionally we could hear children crying and old women scolding. There were always people. Today it's quiet. In front of the people's houses that live at the gate of the city, even a light is not on. From a distance, it can be seen that the direction of King Yu's residence is emitting thick smoke. It seems that the situation is critical. Seeing Zhao Wei's reaction, many soldiers came forward to watch. Zhao Wei's grip on the handle of the knife tightened a little, ordered a soldier, and said, "Now send a small group of people to the palace." Yes, seeing the soldiers go down in a hurry, Zhao Wei turned around again. "I hope you didn't cheat the general." Mo Shanghua glanced over Zhao Wei and looked in the direction of King Yu's mansion from a distance. He whispered, "I wish this didn't happen too early." Say the right hand can't help caressing to own abdomen. The worry of Mao bottom lightly flashed. At that time, Yen Moli thought it was a very simple thing to win Yen Beicheng, but he did not think that people in black appeared out of nowhere in the palace, which had been controlled by the whole government. And all of them had extraordinary skills, and soon they were fighting with the imperial guards. What's more unexpected is that Yen Xinchuan, who used to look rather useless, now has hundreds of bodyguards attacking from outside the mansion. The situation became complicated for a while. Yen Moli stood in the crowd, looking coldly at Yanbei City, where Enron was protected by people in black. Yanbei City, I didn't expect that you could bring these people to the Imperial City and hide them in your Yuangfu. After a pause, he looked at Yen Xinchuan. You are ready, but it's a pity that our king has 3,000 forbidden troops. You are only a few hundred people. How long do you think you can last? Yen Beiqing's side of the lip slowly raised. The deep pupil reflected Yen Mo's cool and handsome, and some of his eyes were more dark and surreal. There are more things that you don't expect, and there's still more to come. He spoke slowly, his voice was cold and harsh as if it had been mixed with ice. Yen Moli's heart suddenly jumps. He is sure to win now, but he is a little uneasy. Yen Beiqing, up to now there is no room for turning around. Don't be paranoid. Then he looked at General Chen behind him. General Chen, it seems that your people are not doing their best. Don't forget what we promised you. General Chen bowed his head slightly and said respectfully, yes. Then he turned his head and pulled a soldier to tell him, go and remove the people from the 13 Princes' mansion, and come as soon as possible. Yen Moli's heart is a little fixed, only cold eyes looking at the besieged in the middle of Yanbei City. The blood around and the scream have nothing to do with him. Although his grandfather Donglinhao was in a high position, he was old after all. Baorong Emperor didn't want to hand over most of the military power to her. He only handed over the imperial guards to him, and his uncle General Lin was stationed in the frontier. He was really in power. This General Chen is just managing the imperial army with Zhao Wei. If it wasn't for the major plan, Yen Moli would not make a promise. He would certainly be used by him in the future, and would not be suppressed. However, I'm afraid he can't imagine what a monstrous plot is brewing in his heart when he looks at such a respectful General Chen. 1,000 bodyguards were soon transferred, and 3,000 bodyguards against more than 300 people were a battle with no chance of winning. The people trained by Yanbei City can always fight against 10 with 1, but they can't fight for a long time. More and more people fall down. The bluestone ground of the palace is stained red by strong and dazzling blood. The broken limbs and debris on the ground can be seen everywhere. A thick smell of blood in the air flows into the nose, which makes people feel extremely uncomfortable. Qinya had never seen such a situation before. She had a white smile and grasped Demo Ling's sleeve tightly. She felt a sense of vomiting in her chest. Even under such circumstances, Yen Xinchuan's face, which was slightly morbid, became pale. His hands were tightly clasped, and the unbearable hardship in his eyes did not dissipate for a moment. Yen Beiqing lowered his eyes and watched his own people being killed like this. How could he not feel uncomfortable in his heart? Just wait. Just wait. She will come back safely. Mo Shanghua is ready to put the knife on Zhao Wei's neck if he doesn't agree. At the moment, Zhao Wei, who is still waiting, is silent. I don't know how long I've been waiting, but I can't control my anxiety when I get to Mo Shanghua. I've just been sent out a small group of guards, and only one of them has been helped up. His whole body's blood. Then even talk is also angry, voice is very small. The imperial palace strengthened, we showed a little doubt, then was directly killed. This will prove that the imperial city is indeed in chaos. Zhao Wei suddenly pulled out his sword, and his eyes were almost frozen. Take him down. The rest of us will listen to the command of our general now. Only 2,000 will be left. The rest 3,000 will follow me into the city immediately. He was promoted by Emperor Baorong. He is loyal to Emperor Baorong. He can't bear it now. Yes, the sonorous and powerful voices of all the officers and men rang out. The flowers on the street always seem indifferent. In fact, there is a huge stone hanging in my heart. Now I see that Zhao Wei is finally moved, and a heart falls back. General, I think we'd better go first. Before the end of the sentence, 2 soldiers who were mixed with the soldiers suddenly drew their swords and rushed to the flowers on the street. 2 soldiers left and right attack. 2 knives will be straight toward the flower cut. Even when Zhao Wei saw this, his pupils suddenly shrank. Unexpectedly, he took a step too slowly. However, Mo Shanghua's skill has always been vigorous, but in a moment, she bent down at an unbelievable angle, and then jumped to the wall. Before the two soldiers could react, they just felt a flower in front of them, and they were directly attacked by her two hands. Zhao Wei has already been walking to half of the step, suddenly stopped down. Sink eyes. Take these two people down. As soon as the words came down, some soldiers came forward and held the two men down, took a stroll on the lower abdomen, and then jumped down and landed on the ground. If I hadn't guessed wrong, the two must be the eyeliner. Zhao Wei calm face slightly nodded. Now the situation is urgent. There is no time to interrogate. Immediately put these two people in custody. After a pause, Zhao Wei said, Princess, the last general will go to the palace first now. If the princess has nowhere to go, she can wait here and will be protected. His address has completely changed at the moment, and his recognition of Mo Shanghua is also from his heart. A woman who is so brave, resourceful and courageous is much better than more men. When Mo Shanghua shakes her head slightly, and her eyes are fixed on him. I must go with you, and I must go to your palace first. Zhao Wei's face hesitated. He thought deeply in his eyes, but now it's your majesty who is in danger. If you don't go to the palace immediately, I'm afraid things will change. There are 3,000 imperial guards in the palace, and the remaining 3,000 imperial guards are all in King Yu's mansion now. If they don't exterminate first, there will be endless trouble in the future. Think of now or be besieged in Yuangfu Yanbei City. Mo Shanghua heart hard contraction up. Besides, if not timely rescue, the kingdom of God is really no successor. Zhao Wei frowned and thought deeply, then nodded to the flowers on the street. I will understand. All the officers and men will go to King Yu's house immediately after hearing the order. At that time, Yan Beiqing, Yan Xinchuan and others had been protected and retreated into the inner hall. The dark guards around had been killed and injured for more than half, and they are still protected in the inner hall. Qinya didn't get hurt at all. Instead, Mo Ling suffered many injuries on her legs in order to protect him. However, she still obeyed Yan Beiqing's words and kept her behind. Qinya's eyes were red with tears, full of remorse and worry, but she couldn't do anything at the moment, so she could only shrink behind him and look at Yan Moli with hatred. Yan Beiqing and Yan Xinchuan are not much better at the moment. Yan Beiqing is highly skilled in martial arts, and there are people fighting to protect each other. They are all right, but their hair is messy and they are in a state of confusion. Yan Xinchuan has no martial arts skills to speak of. He has always been weak. He is also in a mess at the moment, but because he is well protected, he has no scars on his body. However, the images in front of him are enough to make him remember for half of his life. If you have a cup of tea, there is no solution to this dilemma. Mo Ling, you will protect Yan Xinchuan and Qinya to leave. Yan Beiqing holds a long sword in his hand and looks at Yan Moli standing outside the hall. The war situation at that time was already clear. Now they have been forced into the inner hall. All the guards standing in the courtyard outside the hall are armed with sharp blades. They have been completely surrounded. With Yan Xinchuan's escort, there are only 300 dark guards. Now there are only more than 100 people left. On Yan Moli's side, the 3,000 guards lost only 500 people. By contrast, the remaining 2,500 people were enough to swallow up the bones of more than 100 people on Yan Beiqing's side. Mo Ling smelled speech, almost immediately asked, Lord, then you how? You just have to obey my king's orders. Yan North City does not answer. The face has no expression of enunciation. Yan Xinchuan was also shocked by Yan Beiqing's words. He never thought that Yan Beiqing had to protect him in this kind of environment. His heart was full of mixed feelings for a moment. Brother Wu Huang, why do you have to be like this? Although I didn't have a deep friendship with you since I was a child, I will never leave even if I die. Qinya also went forward with red eyes. Prince, the princess can't live without you. If there is no other way, the maidservant would rather die than let you suffer here. Let's not let the future little prince and princess lose their father. Mo Shanghua's advice was still in her ears. She forbeared, and then swallowed it for the time being. Mo Ling's body is a little stiff for a while, and then comes forward to kneel down on one knee. My subordinates are incompetent. I'm afraid I won't take this responsibility. Please leave my subordinates by your side for the last fight. Yan Beiqing's face was as cold as iron. His thin lips were slightly pursed, but he could not say anything tough. He was lonely and ill-fated when he was a child. He never enjoyed family friendship. Except for his subordinates and Mo Shanghua, no one has ever lived with him. The reason why he protected Yan Xinchuan was that the covenant was in front of him, and he had no other feelings. But that's why they treat each other so sincerely. Yan Xinchuan looked at Yan Beiqing, who had already hesitated. His eyes and eyebrows were full of firmness. In such an embarrassing situation, he still said, "All the people in the prince's palace listen to the order. If at the last moment, they don't have to care about my life or death. They just escort the 5th emperor's younger brother to leave safely." Yan Xinchuan's people came in from the outside, but now there are only a dozen people left. The rest of them died outside before they rushed in. Even so, Yan Xinchuan would rather fight to the last moment. This time, it was Yan Beiqing's turn to be shocked in his heart. His whole face was tense, and he pursed his lips without opening his mouth. Half handsome and half charming, scarlet face above the dim light, as evil as terror, especially in those deep black eyes. It seems that something is slowly surging brewing. Your Highness, do you want to take them directly? General Chun and Yan Moli were surrounded by the imperial guards, standing in the courtyard, looking down respectfully. No, it's the last moment, but Yan Moli shakes his head at this time, and a subtle radiance rises slowly on one side of his lips. He orders people to set fire. General Chun turned his eyes inside. Your Highness, King Yu, secretly sent troops into the city, provoked civil strife among the people in the city and intended to rebel. After being found, he burned himself to death. The 13 princes were bewitched by King Yu and fell into the sea of fire together. Your Highness, you are so wise. The radiance of Yan Mo's lips became bigger and bigger, and the last uneasiness in his heart seemed to dissipate with this command. In addition to the joy of being a winner, he had already seen him sitting high on the throne. However, the pride in his eyes did not last long. The guards took the torches and prepared to set fire directly. But at this time, they did not know where to shoot thousands of arrows straight into the courtyard. The soldiers could not defend themselves. For a moment, most of the people in the courtyard fell to the ground. Even General Chen didn't expect it. He just blocked the arrow for himself, but he was caught off guard by an arrow on his arm. Your Highness, quickly withdraw into the corridor. Yan Mo Lifang's face, which had just turned clear, was gloomy again. He dodged and quickly retreated into the corridor. At the moment, the soldiers waiting in the outer courtyard also broke in one after another when they heard the movement in the courtyard. However, just after entering the courtyard, they were all killed by random arrows. The arrow clearly came down from the sky. If it was to be shot, it must be on the wall of the palace. But the soldiers who had been guarding the outer courtyard didn't feel any intruders. At the moment, they were in a mess. Brother Beiqing, I've come to save you. When the people in the inner hall were confused, they heard a very romantic man's voice outside the courtyard. It was at this moment that they were still romantic and lazy. Yan Emoli also heard of this life, and could not help looking up. Sure enough, he saw that Hua Qianlu was standing on the roof of the main hall with both positive and negative hands. On his side, there were a group of neat women in black, squatting on the eaves with bows and arrows in their hands and arrow baskets on their backs. They were beautiful but extremely cold. These are the real strength of Qinghuan Pavilion. Lord of Qinghuan Pavilion? After Yan Moli saw Hua Qianliu's face clearly, Zhenyan suddenly turned black and sneered. Just with you, you want to fight my 2,000 troops? Hui Qianlusi was not angry, and the smile from the corner of her lips was wanton. Tut tut, after all, I'm the richest businessman in the world. Don't look down on me. Your Highness King Ling. No one, but I still have money. In the inner hall of Yanbei City, at the moment, the deep and unpredictable eyes suddenly burst out a cloud of color. Maureen. Thin lips slightly pick. Mo Ling slightly let go of Qinya. Go to the door. The sword in the hand suddenly flew towards the corridor in the hospital. Yan Moli's pupil suddenly shrinks, and he quickly backs away. The long sword stabs into the ground in front of him, half of which is not on the ground. In Yenmo's fierce play, he was surprised and angry. Before he could speak, he saw the flowers and willows standing on the roof suddenly and gently smile, and all the people on the roof withdrew. Yen North City also at this time quickly turn around, speak extremely fast command, all follow me. Then he took the lead to enter the room through the corner door. Yen Xinchuan was puzzled, but seeing Yen Beiqing's strategy, he relaxed a little, and came forward to keep up. As soon as Mo Ling turns around, he grabs Qinya's wrist and pulls him to follow. And at that time, Yen Mo Li heart suddenly violent beat for a while, complexion big change. Not good, quickly out. As soon as the words came to an end, there was a violent explosion in the crowded corridor. Boom, boom, boom. There were several violent blasts, followed by one after another screams. What's more terrifying is that the impact of the explosion is huge, and the whole corridor collapses with the roar, crushing all the people who are crowded under the corridor to avoid the arrow in the ruins. At the same time, more than 200 people who surrounded King Yu's mansion were killed by the people in black, before they could think about the movement in the mansion. There are more than 200 people in black this time. There are about 300 men and 200 women in black this time. Every one of them is ruthless, and their martial arts are clean and neat. But after a while, all the people outside the government have been solved. The people in the mansion are worried about the scream outside the mansion, and the scream inside the founder hall. At the moment, they are all in a panic, but don't want to. Just at this time, those people in black quickly climbed up the courtyard wall. The South Crane body is in among them. The vision coldly looks at the bottom of forbid guard. The voice coldly utters a word, kill. The people in black were ordered to take down their bows and arrows and shoot all the guards in the courtyard. The guards were unprepared, and now they were defeated by the foreign cooperation. There were less than 2,000 people left. They had no fighting back, and there were countless casualties. It took tens of thousands of arrows to stop. Before some lucky survivors could get up, all the people in black jumped down, put away their bows and arrows, and soon surrounded the remaining soldiers. The number of disabled soldiers is only a few hundred now. They are all seriously injured and no longer have the ability to resist. However, few people in black are injured and their faces are cold. It seems that as long as they don't obey, they will directly reap their lives. At this time, because of the big aftershock of the explosion, the inner hall also had some turbulence. The beams of the house cracked, and the bricks and tiles rolled with gravel suddenly collapsed. In a moment, the dust was flying. On the corridor at that time, Yen Moli was pressed down by a pile of corpses. He tried hard to remove these corpses and climb out of them. However, the corpses he pushed away were not complete. They were all short of arms and legs, and none of them was intact. At the last moment, it was these soldiers who tried their best to protect Yen Moli regardless of their own safety. As a result, although Yen Moli was covered with blood and dust in his hair, he had no serious injuries and could walk easily. However, when he crawled out of the ruins, the situation in the hospital had changed greatly. His face suddenly became sinister, and his eyes seemed to be filled with great anger and a deep frustration. Just one step, just one step. His eyes were full of unwilling color, and he could not help biting his teeth and biting his words. He had never seen the remains of the guard who blocked his last fatal blow in the ruins. At this time, a chill suddenly came from the neck. Looking down, it was a long sword with cold light on the neck. Yen Beiqing, holding a long sword, glared at Yen Moli, who was not stable and unwilling at the moment. His eyes were cold as a pool. You lost. Just 3 words, but it seems to poke in Yen Moli's pain. He clenched his fist, held back the anger in his heart. Those were you to let me relax. In fact, you've already designed everything, just waiting for me to throw myself into the net and ask for credit from my father. You know, too late. Yen Beiqing's eyebrows and eyes remained unchanged, and his lips were full of sarcasm. You've done everything, but you've lost too much arrogance. Hua Qianlu put his hand on Yen Beiqing's shoulder, and looked at Yen Moli, who was in a mess. He made up his sword impolitely. What you know is too late. What, arrogant and conceited, according to my son. It is clear that he is too stupid. Yen Moli's eyes were red with anger, but he couldn't move because of the sharp blade between his neck. He just said, Okay, but you forget, Yanbei City, the Imperial Palace is in our hands now. As long as your father gives the Imperial Edict, you are the anti-thief, and I, of course, the Crown Prince. Thinking of this, he couldn't help but evoke a bloodthirsty color in his eyes, and the corner of his lips was crazy. The palace is controlled by the Queen Mother and the East Marquis. It's how you control me now. The situation has long been decided. By the way, and General Lin, now she should also go to the foot of the Imperial City. Yen Sinshuan looked at all this in silence. Seeing that Yen Moli said so, he spoke slowly. Second brother, there is not only the queen in the palace. Yen Moli's pupil shrank and his body moved. What do you mean by that? Hua Qianlu said with a smile. It's literally, of course. By the way, there's General Lin who forgot to tell you that he's still in northern Xinjiang. It's impossible for him to come here for a month. As for the palace. Speaking of this, she smiles and shows her white teeth. Don't worry, General Zhao will go to calm the civil strife. Yen Moli's face changed completely. He forced his calm, handsome face to spasm uncontrollably and roared. You fart. Don't think you can defeat me in this way. I tell you, I can never lose. Yen Sinshuan closed his eyes slightly, and a sigh flashed in his eyes. Yen Beiqing's eyes looked coldly at Yen Moli, and the words from his thin lips were like ice. Yen Moli, it's all over. As he said that, his sword deviated a little, and he was about to be taken down by a worker. However, he suddenly seized the chance, and then took a big knife on the ground with his toes. He cut at Yen Beiqing with red eyes. Yen Beiqing reacted very quickly to block with a long sword. Chong and Chong, the sound of weapon collision aroused Yen Moli's indignation, and he cut at Yen Beiqing more fiercely. In terms of martial arts, Yen Beiqing is slightly better than Yen Moli. However, Yen Moli has made a crazy attack at this time. For a moment he is playing with Yen Beiqing, and it is difficult to decide whether to win or not. Yen Sinshuan looked at the anxious, eyebrows gradually twist up. One side of the flower willow is smiled to stop is about to come forward of Mo Ling. Don't interfere, this is your master's own thing. Mo Ling seems to have something else to say, but Qinya suddenly grabbed his hand and shook his head slightly. Brother Mo, you still have injuries. Maureen some stiff pause steps, silent retreat back. At that time, because of the passage of time, coupled with physical exertion, Yen Beiqing and Yen Moli had gradually separated. As soon as the sword in Yen Beiqing's hand was turned over and lightly picked, Yen Moli's sword was directly picked to the ground, and the victory was divided. Before Hua Qianlu had time to say hello to Yen Beiqing, he saw that Yen Moli, who had lost his sword, was crazy. He rushed up again with his red eyes. The dirty palm, however, seemed to emit a few threads of black gas, and the speed increased several times. In a blink of an eye, he came to Yen Beiqing. The fight, Yanbei City in the fight-up actually had a bit of difficulty. Yen Moli hands of the black gas has expanded a bit, if not lingering in his palm around. The black spirit seemed to have the power to bewitch people. It made Yen Beiqing feel a little trance for a moment. It was just such a trance. Yen Moli slapped his hand on his chest. Yen Beiqing stepped back a few steps. His chest was full of qi and blood. His lips were full of blood, and his eyes were a little black. Yen Moli seems to be completely crazy at this time. He picks up the long sword on the ground and greets Yen Beiqing again. Naturally, Yen Beiqing will not shrink back and greets Yen Beiqing again. It's just that this time he obviously has a hard time. When he sees a knife, he will cut it at his neck. It's too late for Yen Sinshuan. At this time a cold light flashed quickly in the air. Yen Moli's action slightly stopped. Then he saw a thin and delicate figure darting up, and his body appeared behind Yen Moli like a ghost. He stabbed Yen Moli's shoulder with a sword, and the body of the sword went through his shoulder directly. Yen Beiqing's whole body pressure suddenly reduced, his body slightly shook, his mouth was a burst of fishy sweetness, and his lips were dyed crimson. Mo Shanghua immediately put down his sword and rushed forward. Hua Qianlu and Yen Sinshuan also came forward at the first time, holding Yen Beiqing left and right. Emo Shanghua came forward and caressed his cheek carefully. His eyes suddenly became sour. He could not help but let his tears fall down. Yan Beicheng, what's the matter with you? Do you want to be tight? I'll show you now, said involuntarily to pull his wrist. Yan Beicheng pulled his wrist back, grinned at her and said, "It's okay. It's just some internal injuries. Just take care of it for a few days," said as if to prove the general, two arms from Flower Willow and Yan Sinshuan hands out. "Stand upright. You see, it really doesn't matter. Now there are other things to do, let's go to work first, doing other things." Emo Shanghua looks at Yan Beicheng, as if to make sure that what he says is true or false. But Yan Beicheng looked left and right, but he didn't look at her. He held him in one hand and walked forward to Yan Moli. "Tie him down and take him down." Just now, Yan Moli, who was still clamoring and unwilling, was already in a coma and fell on the ground. He didn't know why, so he was dragged down by Hua Qianlu. After ordering this matter, he raised his hand to wipe the blood on his lips and looked at Zhao Wei, who was in armor and shocked. "General Zhao, this place has been dealt with. Let's go to the palace now." Zhao Weigang was still surprised at the situation here, and saw that Yan Beicheng was seriously injured, but he could deal with things calmly with such a changeable face. He was completely convinced. Yes. This time, he listened from the bottom of his heart. Although Hua Qianlu and Yan Sinshuan only met each other, they didn't ask more about Yan Beicheng's injury. The South Crane also entered the inner courtyard at the moment, didn't notice the difference of Yan Beicheng, only recovered his life towards him, then spontaneously stood beside Hua Qianlu. When all the people went out, the whole palace was empty, and an embarrassed figure struggled to climb out of the ruins. General Chen is no more fierce than Yan Mo, and there are several pro-guards who are willing to fight to protect each other. They are lucky to be able to save their lives. At this time he was seriously injured in one leg, stumbled out, found an exit, and walked out slowly step by step. At that time, the Imperial Palace was also on guard against killing. All of a sudden, wearing armor and white hair, Donglinhao entered Cunning Palace in a hurry. As soon as Queen Lin saw that the Marquis was coming, she immediately went forward to meet him. What she saw was not the joy she imagined. Her heart suddenly jumped. "Father, why do you have such an expression? What's the matter?" At this moment, the Eastern Marquis did not care about the courtesies of the monarchs and ministers. His old face was full of anxiety and gloom. The palace gate was suddenly forcibly occupied by the forbidden guards, and Zhao Wei was the leader. "The news from King Yu's mansion is now broken, and can't be contacted." "What?" Empress Lin's face was full of disbelief, with the same anxiety on her face. "How could it be so? Isn't Zhao Wei obediently guarding the city gate? Why did he suddenly bring troops to attack the palace? Is he crazy? Besides, there's my brother. Why hasn't my brother come yet?" Donglin Ho's face sank completely, and he said, "The leaders are Yan Beicheng and Yan Sinshuan. Now your brother has no news. Your Royal Highness Ling. I'm afraid it won't be." Empress Lin faltered at her feet, nearly fell to the ground, her cheeks were pale. "How could it be like this? How could it be like this? Li Er, what's the matter with Li Er? What's the situation like now?" Donglin Ho shook his head with a heavy face. "I've said that. Now everything is not clear." Empress Lin felt soft all over, and even felt that her head was heavy and her feet were light. Her eyes were full of confusion. "Father, what should I do now? If they beat them in, all this will be over. I have come to tell you about it." Donglinhao suddenly stepped forward, holding Empress Lin's shoulder tightly in both hands. "Listen, now find someone to release the Imperial Dr. Liu, and let him save your majesty. Then he orders the Imperial Guards to fight to death. When your majesty wakes up, he says that Yan Beicheng intends to rebel and win the throne." Empress Lin's eyes suddenly brightened, just like catching the last straw. She suddenly stood up. "I'm going now." Then, regardless of her queen's manners, she stood up in a hurry and walked out. Looking at Empress Lin's back in a hurry, the Eastern Marquis also took out his sword, and went to the most fierce place with the Imperial Guards. Zhao Wei had a large number of people, 5,000 soldiers, together with Yan Beicheng and Hua Qianliu's men. all existed as one block in 10. The 3,000 imperial guards in the palace couldn't last long, so they had retreated to the gate of Yangxin Hall, taking Yangxin Hall as the center, making the final resistance. King Yu, Prince 13, you are plotting a rebellion. Donglinhao was guarded in the center by the imperial guards, and angrily yelled to Yan Sinshuan in Yanbei City, Your Royal Highness Lingwang sealed the inscription and went to exterminate the anti-thief. You fight together, but you also hurt Your Royal Highness Lingwang seriously. Now you are attacking the palace again. You are conspiring. Both Yan Beiqing and Yan Sinshuan are riding on the horse, looking coldly at the angry East Marquis. As soon as Yan Beiqing wanted to open his mouth, he felt the qi and blood in his chest surging, and there was a smell of fishy sweetness in his throat. He pressed his lips tightly and forced down the fishy sweetness that had reached his throat. Yan Sinshuan's gentle temperament is doomed to be unable to shout out in such a battle. And the most eloquent Flower Willow and South Crane do not know where to go at the moment, not in them. As a result, Emo Shanghua raised her voice with her internal power, and said impolitely, Dong Linho is so old that she has the cheek to confuse black and white here? Who in the end directed and acted by himself in an attempt to take advantage of this incident and remove King Yu and the 13 princes together. Fortunately, he inherited the throne, and the discerning people will naturally know at a glance. He pointed to his nose and scolded him for being cheeky. Facing Ho in the east, he couldn't hold on to his old face. He held back his anger and said, Nonsense. It is clear that you have bewitched the people, intended to rebel and seek the throne. Emo Shanghua coldly raised the corner of his lips, and the irony in his eyes was not concealed. Facing the Marquis in the east, Yan Moli has been captured, and all your affairs have been told by him. Now your majesty is controlled by you in the palace, and you are in a coma. You have no way to explain. Donglinhao said that he couldn't help but see the flowers on the street. His wrinkled face turned red. He simply looked over the flowers and looked at Zhao Wei behind her. General Zhao, you have always been regarded by your majesty as a bodyguard. Now do you believe this woman's nonsense? Don't forget that your Zhao family is full of martyrs. You are the 3rd generation here. If you are bewitched for a while, and your Zhao family's Qingyu boxing is destroyed in your hands, your grandfather will not be able to die. Smell speech. Zhao Wei holding the reins of the hand tight. Turn eyes forget to spend one eye. Eyes light microflash. Emo Shanghua's sight suddenly cooled down, and the corner of his lips raised a cold radiance. You are facing the Marquis in the east. You want to bewitch people in front of the battle, because you are weak. It's really mean. After a pause, she turned her eyes and looked at Zhao Wei. General Zhao, you can doubt my intentions, but please think carefully. If I say anything to you, if there is a false word I say, it is your majesty who is standing here at the moment to question harshly. Zhao Wei looked a little ashamed and lowered his head. It was the last general who was stupid. He was almost instigated before the battle. Yanbei City didn't turn his eyes, but his voice was calm and slightly cold. General Zhao, it's a taboo in the army to turn around before the war. Zhao Wei was more and more ashamed. He clasped his hands and said in a stuffy voice, I'll be ashamed. I won't be instigated. Emo Shanghua coldly looked at Dong Linho, who was black again. He deliberately picked his lips and laughed. Dong Linho, you are at this age, but you have to work for your daughter, Empress Lin. If you don't say that, now all the people in the family have to bear the accusation of treason. It's you who shame your ancestors and let your children and grandchildren bear the consequences for you. After a pause, she said with red lips, the crime of treason should be punished. The old and drooping eyelids of the Eastern Marquis suddenly shook. Don't talk nonsense to confuse black and white. The flowers on the street sneer at the corners of their lips, not saying much. When Yan Beiqing saw this, he pressed down his blood and said in a cold voice, If you are a marquis in the East, if you give up now, your descendants may have a chance to live. It's just a thief who threatens me like this. I've been on the battlefield for more than 10 years, and I've never been afraid of anyone. I'll never listen to you. Donglinhao killed Yan Beiqing and others. They are anti-thieves. They will not let go anyway. At this time, The Yangxin Hall is also in a panic. Lu Wang and others knelt shivering in the outer hall, and the voice of cry in front of the door of Yangxin Hall came from their ears. The tense and bitter atmosphere seemed to have passed through several layers of walls and reached here, which made Lu Wang swallow his mouth. God, he had never seen such a battle in the palace for most of his life. It really killed him. But Empress Lin in the hall couldn't help smashing a teacup directly on Lu Zhang's shoulder. Her eyes were red and she said in a cold voice, "What's the matter with you? Aren't you super skilled? How can your majesty not be cured?" Although Beirongdi's illness was caused by her hands and feet, Lu Yui, who gave her the prescription, had no ability to cure it. That's all right. Unexpectedly, even Lu Zhang couldn't help it. The situation outside the hall was whispered to her by the palace made every moment. Thinking of this, she was more and more anxious. She grabbed Lu Zhang's collar and threatened, "If you can't cure your majesty, the palace will kill you immediately." After all, Empress Lin is a woman. Even so, she can't make Lu Zhang stand on tiptoe, even higher than Empress Lin. He glanced down at Empress Lin's hand, and his voice was still gentle. "Empress, calm down. I'm not an immortal. Your majesty's body has been in deficit for a long time. Once you fall down, it will come true that you are as sick as a mountain. You can't go back to heaven anymore." Empress Lin let go of Lu Zhang's hand. She stepped back 2 steps in a trance. Fortunately, the female official helped her, but she didn't fall down. "This, how can it be? Are you King Yu's person? You have no intention at all." Lu Zhang is standing with his hands down. His eyes are gentle. He is just a weak scholar. Now he is not in a panic in front of the queen who is close to collapse. The queen's nerves are stimulated at the moment. She wants to have a rest in the future. Empress Lin was stimulated by Lu Zhang's words, and she said coldly, "Go away." "Yes." Lu Zhang nodded slightly and retreated to the outer hall. Turning to the extreme, he turned his eyes and looked at Baorong Emperor, who was lying on the bed with a faint breath. There was a faint light in his eyes. Empress Lin naturally didn't notice that she was weak all over at the moment. Only with the support of the female officer could she barely stop. "Did you just go out to see it again?" The female official nodded, and her face was white. Empress Lin took a deep breath and tried to stand firm. "What's the situation now?" The female official hesitated for a long time, then said in a soft voice, "Now the Yangxin Hall has been surrounded. His Royal Highness Yu and the 13 princes are in charge, and His Royal Highness Ling is not seen." Empress Lin's body suddenly softened, and even the female officials struggled to hold her, and she almost fell to the ground with her. "Nyang Nyang, you should take care of yourself. If it's a big deal, we'll kill you. It's the rebellion of King Yu. We'll be fine." The female official has been with Empress Lin for decades. Now seeing her like this, she can't bear it. She has to endure the fear in her heart, and her eyes are red and comforting. Empress Lin shook her head in despair and pulled her arm out of the female officer's hand. Then she knelt down on the ground slowly. Evil causes have been planted, and things have come to such a state that there is no room for turning around. If Emperor Baorong can't wake up, even if she's killing Yan Beicheng, what's the matter? Emperor Baorong's death and Yan Moli's being arrested again. Isn't it time for King Yu or Yan Xinchuan? At that time, how to conclude the matter is no longer what she can tell. Think of here, Empress Lin, sad from the heart, refused the female official's help, some embarrassed to climb to Baorong Emperor's collapse. Looking at Baorong Emperor's eyes closed and her face pale, she could not help holding the brocade quilt on Baorong Emperor's body. "Your Majesty, in fact, you have nothing to do. You are deceiving me, aren't you? You get up quickly, don't cheat me," said. She tightly grasped the hand of brocade quilt, and grasped the skirt of Baorong Emperor again. "Your Majesty, your sons are going to attack now. If you don't get up again, the kingdom of God will change. Qin Kingdom will take advantage of the opportunity. The whole kingdom of God will not be protected." In this way, Baorong Emperor, who was lying on the bed, still had no reaction. He closed his eyes peacefully, his face seemed to be a little old, and his forehead raised a little deeper. Looking at Baorong Emperor's old face, Empress Lin couldn't help stroking Barong Emperor's forehead. Her voice was desperate and slightly resentful. I've followed you all my life. My only wish is to let Li Heir sit on the throne. If you didn't favor the 13th prince, how could things come to this place? Thinking of this, Empress Lin said with a sad smile. Since this is the case, why don't you die with your concubine? In this way, we can be regarded as living in the same bed and dying in the same coffin. With that, a pair of her well-maintained hands suddenly moved down, trembling, and moved to Bairongdi's neck. She closed her eyes and tried to pinch them down. At that time, only Empress Lin and her close female officials were in the palace. Seeing that Empress Lin was so crazy, the official was so scared that she cried out, "Empress can't do it." Empress Lin's hands trembled slightly, but her strength didn't slacken. Instead, she bit her teeth and went on. I never thought that as soon as I used my strength, I was tightly grasped by a pair of powerful hands. Barong Emperor, who had been lying safely for a day, suddenly opened his eyes and looked at Empress Lin's eyes full of fierce. Empress Lin trembled all over, and opened her eyes instantly. What she saw was Emperor Barong's angry and fierce eyes. Empress Lin felt both shock and joy in her heart. But the next second, she could see her situation clearly. She was so weak that she almost fainted on the spot. Come on. Lu Wing Barong Emperor tightly grasped Empress Lin's hand with one hand, and sat up with the other hand. He cried aloud, a little tired in his voice. Lu Wang, who had been kneeling in the outer hall, suddenly heard the voice of Emperor Barong. He was very smart. He didn't care about the presence of Empress Lin. He quickly got up and ran in. Kneeling in front of the bed, he even slipped forward because of his speed. Empress Lin's hand was grasped by Emperor Barong, and she could not kneel down, but her whole body was soft, and she could not speak with trembling lips. Barong Emperor loose tightly grasped the hand of Empress Lin. Empress Lin was weak. At the moment can't control directly fell on the ground. Zhuchai all over the head fell a few. The woman officer had been so scared that she knelt on the ground and shivered that she didn't have time to help Empress Lin. It's all over. Empress Lin was in complete despair, and tears rolled down her eyes. The awakening of Bairongdi completely changed the situation. However, the people outside the temple did not know. Mo Shanghua and the Eastern Marquis have been fighting for several times, but they have no patience. They are about to hear Yan Beiqing's direct weapons intersect, but they see that Lu Zheng in the hall suddenly arrives at the gate of the hall at this moment. Although he was just a modest scholar, he dared to stand behind the troops of the Marquis in the east. He raised his voice and said, "Your Majesty is awake, Marquis in the east. Let's go and catch him." Unexpectedly, Donglin Hao smiles instead of anger. He turns his head and looks at Mo Shanghua and others in Yan Beiqing. "Your Majesty is awake. Do you dare to follow me to see your Majesty in person to see who intends to rebel?" Mo Flower lips gently hook up. There is no fear on the face. How dare not? Words fall. Turn Mao to see Yin North City one eye. There was no expression on Yan Beiqing's face. When Yin just raised his hand and said, "Wait here." Finish saying, then turn over to dismount directly, then turn around, stretch out a hand to come, see to haven't dismounted of Mo Shanghua. The vision softens down. Mo Shanghua's lips slightly curled up, and he turned over and got off the horse, and then put his hand in the palm of Yan Beiqing. Two hands slowly tighten, 10 fingers clasp. Yan Sinshuan was not in the mood to talk and laugh with them. He got off the horse and walked quickly. At this time, the imperial guards in the hands of the Eastern Marquis also made way one after another, and their weapons were put down temporarily. As soon as he entered the hall, Yan Sinshuan, the biological son of Barong Emperor in Yanbei City, had not opened his mouth, so he knelt down in tears and said, "Your Majesty, you are awake. If you don't wake up all the time, I'm afraid you won't see me." As he said this, he glanced at Empress Lin standing by. At one glance, he realized that it was wrong. If Empress Lin had just woken up in Barong, she would have turned black and white upside down. At this moment, she should not have such an expression. But at this moment, Empress Lin was standing beside her with a pale face and didn't say a word. See East face Ho to see come over. Her lip petal just moved, but a word all vomit not. Yan Xinchuan knelt down beside Donglin Hao and saw that Baorong Emperor was sitting on the bed unharmed. He was relieved. Then he turned his eyes and glared at Donglin Hao. In front of his father, you should frame us like this. At the moment, Yan Beiqing had completely put away the appearance of the dandy outside. Half handsome and half coquettish. Smell speech, he also can't help but lift lip sneer. The matter exactly how, the father emperor has the eye to be able to distinguish. This belongs to the dispute between their father and son. Mo Shanghua simply no longer speak, leaving all the time for their father and son. Beirongdi's face was not good-looking. After sitting for a while he was tired. However, today's things do not allow him to fall down. Come on, take down Donglin Hao. Baorong Emperor didn't have the heart to listen to Donglin Hao Fun, so he gave the order directly. Donglin Hao was surprised and almost stood up directly. He was puzzled and unwilling to say, "What does your majesty mean? Right and wrong are tortuous. I'm clear about it." Come on. Baorong Emperor's gloomy eyes fell on the face of Donglin Marquis, and his voice was very cold. Unfortunately, at the moment, the people outside the hall were either Baorong Emperor or Empress Lin, and no one came for a long time. At this time, Mo Shanghua quietly retreated. Her eyes crossed the Imperial Guard who was still holding fast outside the hall, and the voice of her internal power spread far away. Your Majesty has a life. Take down Donglin Hao immediately. Then, his eyes swept over the stunned guards in front of him one by one. If you don't go along with Donglin Hao at this time, you may be able to pursue his guilt lightly. The guards of the Imperial Forest looked at each other face to face for a moment. Then they lost their weapons, knelt down and cried out. The end will be guilty. Not to mention that Emperor Baorong has awakened and Marquis Donglin Hao has been convicted. These guards will be enough for them. This is not a war between the family and the country. Naturally, people will not fight to the end with their lives. When Zhao Wei saw this, he turned over and dismounted. With a wave of his hand, thousands of guards immediately took care of the guards who had surrendered. Then he strode forward and said, "What will your Majesty do?" Your Majesty has just called. Mo Shanghua Lightmouth turned and walked back. Zhao Wei thought about it and ordered several soldiers to follow him. Then he entered the palace together. At this time, Donglin Hao could not accept such a fact. At last, he could not help but get up suddenly. His withered body trembled slightly. Your Majesty, I have been loyal to you for so many years, so you treat me like this? Emperor Baorong's tired face suddenly flashed a look of anger and exclaimed in a cold voice. I have given you the position of Marquis and real power, but you conspire to revolt. Are you worthy of me? Worthy of your Lin family's ancestors? Come on, take him down quickly at this time. Empress Lin finally knelt down in tears, full of despair. Father, the overall situation has been decided. In the east, Ho's old body shakes and retreats a few steps before he can stand still. His wrinkled face is gray. Zhao Weiqia came in at this time. He also listened to Emperor Baorong's orders clearly. He bowed to Emperor Baorong for a little salute and ordered 2 guards to escort Donglin Hao. Baorong Emperor's eyes turned to Empress Lin kneeling on the ground again. His voice was cold, and there was no trace of affection to speak of. The Empress will be temporarily imprisoned in Cunning Palace. Empress Lin had lost her strength and was full of despair. Renyuan people dragged her down without too much struggle. Baorong Emperor, this just some tired waved. I'll go down. Yan Beiqing got up cleanly and stepped down directly. Yan Xinchuan's step stopped, but he looked at Baorong Emperor with some concern. In the end, he didn't ask much and went down together. Mo Shanghua didn't enter this time, so he waited outside. Seeing that Yan Beiqing came out so soon, he didn't ask much. He just took the initiative to hold his hand and whispered, "It's over at last." Yan Beiqing gently clenched her hand, thin lips pulled out a light radiance. However, before a word was uttered, there was a sudden upsurge of fishy and sweet air in my mouth, which was so fierce that I couldn't control it. Then my head sank and I fell down. Mo Shanghua's whole heart was pulled up in an instant. For the first time, a flustered mood flashed across his cold and indifferent face. Beiqing, Yan Beiqing. Yan Xinchuan also hurried forward. Come on, come on. Yan Beiqing was finally sent to the 13th prince's mansion. One of them was closest to the palace, and the other one was destroyed by most of Yu's mansion. It was Yan Xinchuan who had not been cleaned up yet. There was no damage or casualties. Next, there will be a series of rectification. Emperor Baorong was very angry about this incident. He directly abolished the queen, and Yan Moli's title was also completely dethroned. Both mother and son were locked in the patriarchal mansion, and there was no chance to see the son again. And the charge of treason of Donglinhao is not so easy to let go. The crime of treason should be punished. Even General Lin, who was on the border, was arrested for the first time. In the rest of the Lin family, all the men who were over 16 years old were beheaded. Before 16 years old, they were exiled to the border areas. When 16 years old, women were turned into military prostitutes. Those who were dissatisfied were sold into slavery and never turned over. At this point, the whole Queen family completely declined. Baorong Emperor's edict was issued that night and announced to the world. At the same time, the Prime Minister's office, General Chun, struggling with the pain of bandaging, gritted his teeth and said, "I wanted to catch cicadas with a mantis, but the yellow sparrow is behind. I never thought that King Yu had such strong strength to destroy all my subordinates. Now the imperial edict of the palace has come down. I'm afraid it's difficult for us to act." Lu Bohan walked back and forth in the room with his negative hand. After hearing the words, his eyes changed a lot. Finally, he sighed. "Go back, let me think about it." "Go back?" Chun General almost jumped up in an instant. Ling Wang defeated. "I also participate in it. Do you think I can go back to good?" Lu Bohan looked at General Chun with a gloomy face. "It's good that I can take you here. What else do you want?" General Chun sneered and threatened fiercely. "It's all because of your plan that I tried to cheat King Ling out of his trust. Now my people are dead, and I'm reduced to this point. If you can't send me out of the city, I'll tell you all about your plan. No one can think of it better." Lu Bohan's forehead was full of green tendons, and he gritted his teeth and said, "Good, very good." His half-inch-long beard trembled slightly because of his anger. "Housekeeper, prepare some money for him and send him out of the city as soon as possible." The housekeeper answered and said respectfully, "General, this way please." With a sneer, General Chen glanced at Lu Bohan, stood up and limped out with the housekeeper. The housekeeper followed Lu Bohan for many years. Naturally, this matter would not go wrong. He soon handled everything properly and found a carriage to send General Chen out of the city quietly. Or, before the carriage reached the gate of the city, it was suddenly stopped by a man and a woman. When the coachman saw someone standing in the middle of the road, he quickly reined and the carriage slowly stopped. Hua Qianlu stood upright in the middle of the road, holding the folding fan in his hand, smiling lazily and casually. "General Chun, you really want to wait for me?" As soon as the voice fell, Nanhe raised his foot and kicked it on his leg. "Put your broken fan away." Flower Thousand Willow Pain of Show Teeth, but also dare not refute, hastily put away the fan. "Please General South Crane smile." Nanhe snorted, raised his chin slightly, and his eyes fell coldly. "General Chen, I don't know if you still remember us." General Chen listened to the figure of a man and a woman outside the carriage. Then he lifted the curtain and poked his head out of the carriage. "Who are you? What's the purpose?" Smell speech. Flower Thousand Willow smiled to sing of remind. Chen General expensive person forgets a thing more. Let this child to remind for General. That day, you had a secret talk with a mysterious man, intending to seek the throne, but you were overheard. Do you remember? Chen General looked up and down at this time two people one eye, slightly narrowed eyes. You are not dead. Afterwards, he clearly found the bodies of two men in black in the city, which were very similar to those in front of him. South Crane called a beautiful face way. Not only that, we still know clearly now, and you make peace with that person, is Lu Xiang Lu Bohan. Chen General's eyes are gloomy to stare at two people to see for a long time. Then suddenly put down the car curtain malicious mouth. Hit past, nothing to do. The coachman hesitated. This. Rubbish. Qin General is exasperated to lift the car curtain again immediately, draw out the short sword between the waist to insert the horse's buttocks directly. Startled by the pain, the horse hissed and ran forward like mad. During this period of time, Hua Qianlu and Nan He had already developed an unspeakable tacit understanding. They looked at each other and then quickly flashed away at the same time. At the moment when the carriage was speeding by, they jumped onto the carriage with a light point on their toes, and surrounded the frightened coachman from left to right. The coachman was frightened by the horse, but now when he saw that the two men had just boarded the carriage out of thin air, his blood fainted. Hua Qianlu and Nan He didn't have time to pay attention to the coachman, so they leaned directly into the carriage. Hua Qianlu just put his head in, and a short sword went straight to his neck. He quickly lifted the sword to block him. It's natural that General Chen is good at his present position with a white suit, but he has hurt his leg now, so he will suffer a loss if he really fights. Fortunately, there is very little space in the carriage, so it's very hard to fight. Nanha, a petite man, went into the carriage to fight with General Chen. But in a short time, the carriage broke apart with a loud bang. The wood chips and boards were flying in all directions. The coachman also screamed and flew out together. He fell to the ground unconscious. The horse was hit by the flying board. It ran faster and faster. It was about to hit the city wall. Nanha and Huiqianlia didn't care much. They jumped out of the carriage and landed on the ground steadily. General Chen was not so lucky. He was injured in his leg and couldn't jump down neatly. It was just the result that his other leg was broken together. After thinking for a while, the carriage ran into the wall, and he fell back to the ground with a scream. Unfortunately, when he landed, he fell on the top of a broken door panel and lost his breath. The new guard at the gate looked at each other for a long time and gathered around. Flower Thousand Willows spread out hand, full face helpless. This cannot blame you and me. Stop talking nonsense and go back to the office. The South Crane is deeply aware of the fact that Hua Qianlu talks a lot. Without saying a word, he pulls his collar and walks back. Ah, this is on the street, you just left me some face ah. Hua Qianlu was grabbed by the South Crane and started shouting. But when you look at it carefully, the smile flashed between her eyebrows. The palace of Imperial Concubine Chen. The third prince panted into the inner hall. When Chen Fei, who had been pacing in the hall, saw him coming, she quickly came forward and grasped his arm. How's your uncle? Imperial Concubine Chen is the sister of General Chen. And Chen Fei's footban was lifted as early as after the former Empress Lin lifted the footban. We have news. The third prince wiped the sweat on his forehead, but he hesitated for a long time. Chen Fei's eyes looked earnestly at the third prince, and the uneasiness in her heart became more and more intense. Say it quickly. The third prince was silent for a moment, and then said, My uncle took part in the second brother's conspiracy, and he wanted to escape from the palace privately. Unexpectedly, he was shocked, bumped into the wall, and died. What Chen Fei grabbed the third prince's arm and suddenly tightened her hand, shaking her body. Mother Princess. The third prince is a dutiful son. He quickly and firmly holds Princess Chen. Mother Princess, this is because my uncle is too dazzled. You can have fun. Don't be too sad, and your father is angry with you. When Chen Fei heard the words, she felt a surge of anger in her head. She didn't know where the strength came from. She raised her hand and hit the third prince in the face. You bastard! Do you know? Your uncle is for you. The last sentence had reached her throat, but she still swallowed it, tears in her eyes full of regret. In the final analysis, they were too fanciful. They even wanted a mantis to catch cicadas after several princes were defeated, but they didn't know that King Yu was really powerful. Yen Moli couldn't compete with him. From the beginning, they shouldn't have asked for it. And the third prince, he is soft and timid. If he knew it early, he would show his feet in front of others. Therefore, Chen Fei and General Chen didn't tell him about it. They wanted to tell him about it directly after it was finished. That is to say, he didn't want to and could only ascend the throne. Unexpectedly, he got such a result. Think of here. Chen Fei sad from the heart, slowly walked to the chair to sit down. Finished, Wuxian also finished. The third prince covered his swollen and painful cheek beaten by Imperial Concubine Qin. He went to Imperial Concubine Chun with his head down. After a long time, he didn't know how to comfort her. Princess Qin just sat with tears streaming down her face. Concubine, do you have something to hide from me? Is there something else about my uncle's death? After a long silence, the third prince suddenly raised his eyes and looked at Qin Fei. Qin Fei's heart, which was already dead, jumped fiercely. Almost immediately she denied. Nothing happened. After a pause, she got up again, grasped the third prince's arm tightly in both hands, and stared at him. This matter must not be mentioned again. Don't mention anything about your uncle in front of your father, or plead for the Qin family. The third prince nodded his head in confusion and doubt. He felt confused in his heart. Looking at such a dull son, Princess Qin settled down in her heart. Her son is not very intelligent, otherwise I'm afraid that at such a time, she would not be willing to fight. And this time she will always write down, no longer dare to think about that position. At that time, Yan Beiqing was lying quietly on his bed, even in a coma, and his cold breath was not reduced at all. The clothes on his chest were untied, revealing the tight skin of white jade. But he was slapped by Yan Mo. But there was no scar. There was only a faint black air around his chest. This thing is invisible in Yan Xinchuan's eyes. Only the flower on the street can see it clearly. Even, the black air seems to have some magic power, which makes her quite uncomfortable. Even so, she still did not let go of her hand, holding Yan Beiqing tightly. Her eyes were fixed on Yan Beiqing's chest, her red lips were tight, and her eyes were full of worry and anxiety. What's the matter? Why is there no scar? Why is pulse condition also normal? Why is it that I'm in such a coma? Mo Shanghua has always been very confident in her medical skills, but she never thought that she could cure all the people in the world, but she could not cure the most important man in front of her. Think of here, her heart suddenly a burst of pain. The anxiety in the heart let her several desire madness. However, she is good at covering up, that is how she is in her heart, and she still can't help it. In the eyes of outsiders, she is just dementia, so she quietly holds Yan Beiqing's hand and sits silently. Sister Huang, if you don't want to let Dr. Lu have a look, maybe you can find a way. Mo Shanghua sat here for a long time, and Yan Xinchuan stayed with him for a long time. I couldn't bear it, and I couldn't help gently comforting him. Mo Shanghua held Yan Beiqing's hand tightly, and finally released his hand temporarily, giving way to a position. Lu Zheng's eyes are complex to see a flower on the street, and then just came forward, for Yan Beiqing pulse diagnosis and treatment. Under this pulse, his brow also tightly tightened up. How is this possible? Since the body is all right, why can you be in a coma? Think of here, he raised his hand to open Yan Beiqing's eyelids to have a look, but Mo Shanghua raised his hand to stop him, hoarse voice. No, nothing can be found. After standing in the air for a long time, Lu finally took it back and said in a low voice, since there is no scar, maybe he will wake up soon. Mo Shanghua shook his head. There was no expression on his beautiful face. You all go out. Others can't see it, but in her eyes, Yan Beiqing's side is also full of black air, which will make people feel uncomfortable when they are close. Yan Xinchuan could not see that Mo Shanghua was so depressed, nor could Yan Beiqing look like this. He clenched his fist and said, I'll go to the Zhongrenfu to find the second emperor brother. I must ask him what evil things he has practiced. Said, regardless of the personal boy's dissuasion, turned and left. The flowers on the street did not turn back, nor did they make a sound to stop them. They were dead in their hearts. Princess. Qinya knows Mo Shanghua best. Seeing her like this, she knows that he must be so sad that he can't help whispering. All out. Mo Shanghua directly interrupts Qinya's words, and repeats what he just said. Qinya wants to say something else. Mo Ling, who has been injured and has not yet been cured, looks at her and indicates with her eyes. Qinya just stopped and went out first with Mo Ling. Call me if you need me, and I'll wait at the door. Lu was whispering after her, and then he turned and went out. When everyone went out, Emo Shanghua moved her dry lips again, and her voice was especially hoarse. Yan Beicheng, what are you doing? Are you trying to tease me again? Yanbei City on the bed had no reaction, still lying quietly. The heart of the flower on the street is filled with bitterness. Xian Chang is as cold as her. At this time, her eyes are especially sour. It seems that as long as you blink, tears will fall directly. But she never allowed herself to be so fragile. She raised her head and forced back the hot tears in her eyes. She said with a helpless and painful smile, "You are really bad. I was told to be careful before. I didn't expect that I was plotted against you. You don't miss it. You bury a trap early." Yan Moli steps into the palace and orders Lu Zheng to replace the medicine given by the queen to Baorong Emperor, making him just in a temporary coma. Why didn't you calculate for himself? Emo Shanghua said word by word, although his voice is hoarse but very gentle. You said before that your mother's wife was framed. The real backstage is Empress Lin, right? You haven't told me personally, Yan Beicheng. Do you know that your revenge has been avenged? Emperor Baorong has been too stimulated and completely ill now. Everything is over. In the future, we can have a long time to play. Why don't you get up and share this joy with us? Unfortunately, no matter what she said, Yan Beicheng was still lying on the bed with her eyes closed, and there was no sign of awakening. Yan Beicheng. Emo Shanghua put Yan Beicheng's hand on her cheek, and her voice was very light and gentle. Our children are waiting for you to wake up. You must be safe and sound. Between speaking, she blinked. A drop of tears fell on the back of Yan Beicheng's hand. Huaqian Liuna, who came back the latest, was supposed to have a good drink with Yan Beicheng. I didn't think that when I came in. I saw Yan Beicheng in a daze, and the flower on the street was almost desperate. What's going on? Flower Willow busy stride to the bed. Habitual smile also closed up, brow tightly locked. South Crane also went to the couch with flowers and willows. Why did the Lord become like this? Emo Shanghua's originally gentle eyes were suddenly covered with a deep layer of cold, expressionless enunciation. There are no scars on the body, and the pulse condition is normal. I can recognize what you see. Although Hua Qianlu didn't know the medical skills, he was dignified when he heard Emo Shanghua say that. Have you seen all of them? But what are the side effects? Emo Shanghua shook his head and clenched Yan Beicheng's hand. I don't know why. But in any case, she will not give up. If Yan Beicheng is so unconscious, she will guard his life as he used to guard her in secret. If something goes wrong, there must be a demon. There must be no sign at all. South Crane is calm, slightly bent over, two hands on the shoulder of Emo Shanghua. You calm down and careful look, maybe there will be something to find. South Crane's words. Let the beautiful flowers on the street gently frown. Since Yan Beicheng was in a coma, she was so calm. In fact, her heart had been in chaos. At this time, Nanha's words made her thinking ability gradually recover. If we say something unusual, it is the dark air in the chest of Yanbei City. But Hua Qianlu and Nanhe couldn't see it either. She was afraid that she was too anxious to read it wrong. But at this time she was alarmed. Think carefully, in the palm of Yan Mo Li's hand before, seemed to also linger this breath. Maybe. A possibility surged up in my heart, and the flowers on the street almost stood up, and disappeared in a flash. Qingling's voice came from afar. Guard for me, don't allow anyone to come near. Looking at flowers in the street, Hua Qianlu and Nanhe look at each other, and they can see a sigh in each other's eyes. However, they have no plans to love each other at the moment. They conscientiously remember the words of Emo Shanghua, and guard Yan Beicheng in the house. When the flowers came out of the palace, they directly asked for a fast horse and drove the horse around the city. At this time, the imperial city was still in the middle of the revolution, so there were no pedestrians on the streets, so they didn't worry about spending money on the streets. They just rushed to Ning Songji's present residence as soon as possible. Better know. As soon as I got to the door, the flower on the street didn't care to tie up the horse, so I went up and patted the door directly. Soon someone opened the door, but it was Xue Xue. She frowned and looked at the flowers on the street with displeasure. In such a hurry, is it not that the defeat has been chased nowhere to go? Mo Shanghua didn't have time to talk with her, so she went directly over her to the hospital. I don't have time to fight with you now. I thought Xue Xue might still be in a dilemma. I didn't think she was just playing with her mouth. She didn't dare to stop her when she really went in. Ning knows in the courtyard to know just at this time pace but come out. Also just a faint smile to go up the Mo Shang flower. I know your intention, go. So he's really a clever one? Mo Shanghua wants to think more about the future, and immediately turns sharp. Ning knows that she will follow. She was so anxious that she didn't want to delay at all, but there was only one horse. She simply gave the horse to Ning Tongji, but she mobilized her internal power and directly carried the lightness skill Jiqia back. Soon came to the palace. Missouri Shanghua pushed open the door, pulled Ning Tongji over, did not care to wipe the sweat on his forehead, panted and asked, I only asked, can you see it? While speaking, one hand pointed directly at Yan Beiqing's chest. The flower willow on one side has not recovered from the speed of flowers on the street, but also heard her so inexplicably come, more confused. What can you see but can't see? However, no one answered him. Rather no even did not look at the direction of flowers on the road, then gently nodded, see. There was a doubt in the eyes of flowers on the street. He went forward and pulled Yan Beiqing's skirt open. Just when his fingertips met the black air, it was as if he had been burned by something. His fingertips were stinging and burning, but there was no scar when he raised his hand. Rather no brow, this just slightly wrinkled a few minutes, low voice exhort, you can't touch this thing. Why? What the hell is this? I just feel so stingy, so what should he do? Is it life-threatening? Mo Shanghua took back her hand in her heart. Xiaomei wrinkled her eyes tightly. Her worry became more and more intense. A series of questions could not dispel her confusion and anxiety. One side of the flower willow and south crane is to see the fog. Listen to the meaning of flowers on the street, is that there seems to be something in Yan Beiqing's chest, which can be seen from their sight. It is clear that there is nothing. What are they talking about? Looking at Hua Qianlu still want to open his mouth, Nanhe raised his hand and twisted it around his waist, then glared at him. Let's go out first and wait outside the room. The house was so quiet that Hua Qianlu had to endure the pain. She didn't dare to go out with Nanhe. Lu Zheng is also waiting outside. He sees them smiling politely, and then he sits aside. At that time, Ning Tongji put his hand over an inch of Yan Beiqing's chest and explained. King Ling was interested in some of the Wuxian's techniques before, so he ordered people to watch me all the time. I simply gave him a book of the cultivation of immortals at will. As he said this, the palm of his hand, which covered Yan Beiqing's chest, gave out a light white light. The art of cultivating immortals was just bought by me at the market. I didn't expect that he believed it. I didn't know how to do it, and he developed some evil spirit. With his words, the light in the palm of his hand flourished. In a moment he scattered the black qi everywhere. If he had vitality, he wanted to escape. However, the white light in Ning's hands seemed to have some attraction. It soon spread and wrapped the black qi in it, so that there was no escape for the black qi. Mo Shanghua has always known that the world may not be as simple as she imagined, but she never thought that such a spell actually exists. More than that, what's more shocking is that Yan Beiqing was hurt by the evil spirit. Think of here, Mo Shanghua's heart seems to be tightly grasped by a big hand. This evil spirit should be some evil things. If so, what kind of damage will it do to his body? That you're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.